I'll show you what's going on here. Like I got Byron. I'm trying to kill him here. I've got booby traps everywhere, and if you look at you look at what we got set up here. It's kind of funny. We got a studio. We have a studio I think we're going to be using, and this studio is going to be cool because it's certainly what would you call it?
What?
Tell me our studio. My studio I found.
It's very, very rustic.
A little rustic.
Yeah, very Minnesota.
It's very Minnesota.
Vibey.
Oh my gosh, it's goofy.
But it's got a lot of charm though. It's got something that makes it its own thing. You know, it's not. I'm sure with some work we can fix it up and make it look nice.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So, all right. So let's dive into this a little bit. So this is Byron over here.
Hello.
And Byron is my new full-time videographer because I just feel like, I need to be more efficient with my time. And he has ridiculous abilities that I do not have. And we have vision for all sorts of stuff. But this morning, so this is like Feedbackwrench podcast 101 here. And I'm not going to sit and waste your time. We're going to keep this moving. So Byron walks in, right? So Byron, I'm probably going to have all sorts of little just me grabbing my phone. We're going to run and gun, and we're going to figure this out. So what did I tell you? What did you have to do when you start driving? Because you're driving. Where are you driving from?
I'm driving from Egan, and I'm coming to work to New Market. What is this? Lakeview?
Yeah, Elko, New Market.
New Market.
25-minute drive, right?
25-minute drive, and Rob was telling me that when he had to drive, 1 hour both ways?
Yeah, an hour both ways. I'm like, if you're in the car, doggone it, you better be listening to something. And we're gonna make this like your class. God's gonna use this time.
Yeah.
God's gonna use your time, and you're gonna have all sorts of opportunities. This is gonna be like your new college degree that you already have. Where'd you go to school again?
Minneapolis College of Art and Design.
So you learned about artsy fartsy stuff.
Yep, artsy fartsy stuff.
I learned about business stuff.
Yeah, so we're gonna clash in a good way. I think. Yeah.
And what is it? I'm right brain, you're left brain. Yep. I'm right brain, he's left brain. So
I think I'm right brain, you're left brain.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
You're creative. You're
right.
a fine-tooth comb. I'm not creative.
Okay, I'm left brain then.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like the thick. Well, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Introvert, extrovert.
Yep.
Hilariously, now we talked about this. He's Hmong.
Yep.
I'm very exceedingly Scandinavian. I look like every other Scandinavian offensive lineman across all of North Dakota.
And
like seriously.
And I have a mullet. So.
And you have a mullet, and I have like not a mullet, and I have a really big head. Get this? Did you know that I have like the biggest head in Lakeville? So well, maybe not anymore. Maybe there's some other people, but I'm 6'5".
I don't know. My head's pretty big too.
I'm 6'5", 350 pounds with a little extra butter, a little blubber going on that I don't necessarily need. And when I was in high school, it was so funny. Like you go get measured for your graduation hat your senior year, and I get in line, and I'd always known I had a big head. Like seriously, when I played little football, like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade football, which I was so dominant. I was so dominant in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, dude.
And this sealed the deal when you got your head measured.
Yeah,
so it like finalized.
So when I'm little league football, everybody else had normal helmets. I had to go to the high school and get a high school helmet in 4th grade or 3rd grade. So I had a blue varsity helmet, giant noggin. Wow. You're really nice. You're like, wow, that's neat. I have a huge head. Then in high school, I get in a line and they're measuring heads, and I'm standing there in line with all the cute girls. And I'm like, it's like 10 lines, and they're just measuring us up like cattle, getting ready for graduation outfits and all this nonsense. And I sit down. She wraps her little thing around my head. This is way pre-COVID. We're talking 1999, baby. Yeah. 2000. And she puts the thing around my head, and she goes, all right, we got a winner. We got a winner. This, and she says it's so loud, the whole line. Now, I wasn't embarrassed. Like, I was like captain of the football team, captain. I didn't care. I was there. This is a part of my life where I was arrogant and proud. I wasn't too worried about it. She said, we got a winner. You have the biggest head that I've ever had. I've been doing this volunteer-wise for 15 years. You have the biggest head I've ever measured. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Do you remember what the measurements were?
Dude, no, huge. But you know what? I should yell at my wife and be like, give me a hat. Because I'm not kidding, dude. This head... Like people are like, hey. I just had one of my business owners. He drives from LA or San Francisco in his Porsche to Minnesota to come see my operation. And he shows up. He's like, hey, man, I got you this hat. He takes off his hat, and I just look at it like,
it's not gonna fit.
Of all the things you bought me, dude, that's not gonna happen. I put it on. It looks like a stupid little beanie. It looks like a little yarmulke.
Oh,
like
brother.
Ben Shapiro, you'd be proud, dude. It was so funny. So I'm like, all right. So I got a big head. Where did we start with this? Oh yeah, you're Asian. Yeah. I'm exceedingly Norwegian, and yeah, dude. So we're here. So Byron's here to help me be more productive, and we're gonna have more conversations. And so there's a little bit of Jesus in this.
Yep.
Right? Because both of us follow Jesus. It's all right if you don't. Mm-hmm. We got a plan for you where you start following Jesus. Mm-hmm. No. But we're going to talk about how it's been helpful in our life. Both of us have had times in our life where we just pursued our own ways and it was unhelpful. Mm-hmm. We like to drink and party and other indulgences that aren't exactly helpful.
Drugs, rock and roll.
Yeah, man.
You name it, we did it.
Yeah, and I'm not proud of it. And no matter what, it's got us to where we are. And anyways, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I know search engine optimization and marketing and business. I've started 2 businesses. And I got to laugh. Even in video here, yesterday we were like trying to plan stuff. And Byron's very measured. I am measured, but I'm all about fire, ready, aim. You should read the book. It's called Fire, Ready, Aim. I'm all about move, baby. And let it be nasty, broken, undone. And so I'm going to be like the lead blocker, which that was my job. I was a giant lead. I played football for a little bit.
Was it nose tackle?
Yeah, I did a little nose tackle. I was like the right tackle, the giant offensive guard. I played in high school. So here's the story on this. I had a full ride scholarship to go play Division I football at Northern Illinois University.
Impressive.
Yeah, well, impressive, except for that it was really hard for me. See, here's the deal. I have a ton of respect for anybody who actually finishes a athletic career at a college, because like you have to be a full-time student. I wasn't a student even in high school. Like I didn't care at all. Like I was just, I don't know how I graduated high school. I did no homework. I skipped class every day. I had no interest in growing. You're so polite. He's looking at me like, "Wow, this is good." It was bad.
I'm silently judging Rob. So if you guys don't see me off camera, I'm giving him the judgment.
I need judgmental eyes. It's bad. My kids, daughters, Natalie, Hope, Peyton, Bennett, do your homework. Don't go through the stupid that I did, and you will have a better life. Things will be better. So, anyways, where was I? Basically, football. So football. Yeah. So I was like, all I did was 3 sports my whole life. High school, I'm all captain of the football team, captain of the track team, throwing shot. Like I wasn't a long distance runner, if you can't tell. And
well, I can tell.
And I played basketball, and I was like the 6th man in basketball. I was the goon they kind of called out to, like, hey, we need to box out the 7-footers. And I'd take my 300-pound tail and I would punish the tall, skinny kid and make sure that nobody wanted to come through. I wasn't overly cheap, but I punished people. There's a lot of people that didn't want to play sports because I was playing sports with them. Wow. It was like that. And like I could drop step dunk 1 step, like 6'5", 300 pounds. There's tons of dudes that can do that. That's nothing special. I'm a dime a dozen, but not around here I wasn't. There wasn't a ton of people. So anyways, I play football. I go to college. I got so much respect. And I get there, I'm like, oh, I got to be a full-time student. I got to be a full-time athlete. I'm not a student at all. And then it's like, oh, by the way, you have to like do your laundry and feed yourself and clothe yourself. It was not happening. Like I remember anyways, I quit. I came home. And so the idea was my identity was in football. Like everything was in football. Everything was in athletics. My identity was there. And then God changed my life because during that time, I thought people wanted me to be Captain Tough Boy. Like I thought the reason why everybody liked me or anybody would like me was because I was good at football or I was tough or I was, like my nickname was Stinky for like 1 year. And it's because I farted in class once and this guy goes, Satrom, you stinky bastard. You know what? We're just going to call you Stinky from now. I was playing 3 sports, lifting in the morning, doing plyometrics at night, having practice. I was eating like probably 10,000 calories a day. I was like putting on muscle while I was burning like 10,000 calories. So I had some gas. My wife would say I probably still have some gas, unfortunately. Anyways, during that time, I thought my identity was in that. And that led to me, especially when I started to drink, started to smoke weed, started to drink primarily though. And alcohol, it's just so unhelpful. And what was funny is our whole culture in high school was that dude, this is fun to party. Let's party. Let's go over party at Meester's house. And we would go over there, and we would drink underage. And what's terrifying is how so many of the people that I was around, I've watched their lives get derailed. I've watched people die now. I've seen it derail my momentum in life. I've seen it. I have friends. I've even had, just acquaintances on Facebook, right? There's this one gal who had struggled and just recently come out of severe alcoholism. And I can just still see her as this sweet, cute, innocent little athletic gal that used to play tennis. And she was awesome. And here she's sharing pictures of her yellowing eyes because her organs are just distraught because of how much she was drinking. It's so slippery. It's so unhelpful. But I'm not here to what we talk about here isn't meant to condemn you. It's meant to share, we were just joking. Byron's old.
Yeah, I am.
How old are you?
I'm 41.
You're 41. I'm 38. He's so old.
I feel old.
I'm the same age as him, pretty much. Basically. See, he's got Asian side on him.
I've got the Asian genes, so I can pass for 30.
Dude, my grandpa's 93, and he's like a specter. I'm convinced that he's drawing life from somewhere. He's like an undead. He's an undead priest in World of Warcraft or something. Gosh. You cannot kill this dude. He's got healing spells. My grandma runs around and puts healing spells on him. Man. He's had I love my grandpa. He's so cool. He's super funny. It's my dad's dad, right? And he's got he's had skin cancer. Because guess what? I don't know. Do Asians get skin cancer?
I think everyone gets skin cancer, but not as much. Where our thing is just cancer.
Just cancer.
Or diabetes.
Diabetes?
That's the biggest epidemic in us because we eat a lot of rice, and that raises your blood sugar. It overworks our pancreas, and we back in the old country. When I say old country, I'm talking about Laos. That's the socialist country that my parents fled to come here to America so we can make a better life for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And when we came here, the land of milk and honey, it also had a con, where we didn't have to farm and sweat and work out. We would wake up at 3 a.m. back in Laos, you know.
Hustle and
before
grind.
The crack of dawn.
Yep.
Work all day until 6 p.m., farm all day, and then when we came home, we would just eat, go to bed, and rinse and repeat.
So you get away with eating sugary, starchy, blood sugaring. You know what? I used to get away with so I'm 350 pounds. I was 420 pounds. Let's show a picture of this right now. Look it up. Byron looks to the side like he's looking. I was even fatter than I am now. And it's funny. So, you get away with eating way more calories because it's really just calories in, calories out. But I got away with eating a lot, too.
We'd walk uphill, downhill, mountain climbing or hiking.
So Asians got diabetes.
Yeah, well, because we would eat rice today, in America. Yeah. And sit down. We didn't work it off, or we're not working it off.
My people are cursed by the sun. My people, I sunburn in 7 minutes. And it's so funny. I'll go outside and I'll go on vacation or something like that. I get sunburned so quick. And then even when I'm at peak color, which this is definitely it's not that far off from this. And this is terribly not colorful. And so my grandpa has had all sorts of skin spots cut off of him. He used to, he was a farmer, and when he farmed, he'd just take his shirt off, and it was common in the early the 20s, 30s, and 40s. You just let yourself fry, and that was you're a golden hue of red. Wow, you're like a super pink boy. And anyways, he. Oh man, how did we even get here? But my grandpa's really cool, and skin cancer is in our genes. And back to this whole idea that there are things that were helpful and unhelpful in life. Alcohol, unhelpful. The sun to my skin, unhelpful. But we're here to talk about the things that are helpful. We're not here to condemn anybody. We're here to talk about what's been done in our life to get us to where we at. And that's probably a cool little transition, right? Mm-hmm. So interesting enough, so I've got this story. We're going to be telling this story. A little bit about how I got to this point where I'm on my second business. I started Nuance Financial Tax and Accounting at an outsourced accounting firm where I grew from 0 to 100 some odd clients, and we did monthly retainers, and we made a much more meaningful practice than what you see out of your typical CPA firm. Typical CPA firm, we're going to have tons of videos, but typical CPA firm is just dreadful. Mm-hmm. I need to get as many tax returns as I want. Anyways, we made a different firm. Got it really successful. We had some shenanigans in the business ownership. Won't go there. If you're watching this, guys, I love you. God is changing my heart over time. And I launched Feedbackwrench. So I'm in my second business. I'm in year 5 of Feedbackwrench. It's crazy how quick the years go. And so we'll tell a little bit of that story, but we're going to be doing all sorts of stuff. So I got this challenge. We got all sorts of YouTube channels that I want to do. And this is good. We're going to have the podcast / videos, and we're just going to create and see what happens. But, this video, what started is Byron. I remember how we got started here. I was like, hey, dude, when you're driving, you should listen to stuff. Yeah. And he's like, he walks in, I'm like, Byron, how you doing, man? Because it's day 2. Like, he just showed up yesterday. And so he's just getting used to how crazy I am. And he's like, yeah, it was awesome, man. I was listening to this sermon on AM 900, and it was this. And so tell me what you learned, because we were talking about rich people.
Yeah.
And that we're rich.
We're rich today. And, sometimes we've kind of focused too much on making money. We take it for granted that the luxuries we have today is 10,000 times better than what the richest person had 2,000 years ago. And sometimes we kind of lose track.
Oh, for sure. It's interesting. So let's just jump on that real quick. Isn't it crazy how during 9/11 and now in COVID, when you have these gut check moments where all of a sudden mortality becomes real to you. Mm-hmm. When mortality becomes real to you, you start to fathom, it quickens you. And on the other side of that, I think that, so there's this verse in Matthew 19 where basically this rich man comes to Jesus and he's like, hey, I follow, how do I get to heaven, or how do I inherit the kingdom of heaven? Jesus is like, well, obey Moses' law. And he lists out all these things. He looks at Jesus, he's like, well, I do all that, which, let's be real here. There's no way he did. Maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe he's super pious. Maybe he's got righteousness oozing out of him. Chances are he was a little over-optimistic in his execution of the law.
Yeah.
So then Jesus cuts to the quick and he says, sell your possessions and follow me. And follow my ways. I'm not reading it here. We could read it, but sure. The bottom line is he says, sell your possessions. And then he goes on to talk about how there's a lot of stuff in here that I highlighted. I'm like zoning out on it. But basically, I wanted to make a video. I'm like, dude, let's sit down and talk about this, because I think that when Jesus talks about that it's more difficult for a rich man to go to heaven than it is for a donkey to go through the eye of the needle. And then all of a sudden the disciples are just stunned. And they're like, well, how do we get to heaven? Because let's face it, these guys were probably productive people. They probably Jesus probably had some operations going on. It seems like, whether he was a carpenter, we don't know that for sure. But I would imagine that most of these guys, there's a tax collector in there that's like known with them. These guys were fishermen. Like they were actively running their own operations. They probably had things going, more than likely. We don't know for sure. But they look to him, they go, well, then how can we be saved? Because when you read those verses, that it's hard for rich people, and here we are in a society where, you talk about we're truly rich, but free enterprise market. So just so you know, I'm a capitalist, and so is Byron. That was like a deal breaker for both of us. it like big time. I love my socialist friends, but using the state to distribute wealth is unhelpful. But the free enterprise system and the rule of law, where you have property law, and you're protected from people stealing your stuff and hurting you, and then having a free exchange of goods between nations. So trade and the free enterprise system, where one party is trying to pursue their profits by meeting the needs and being chosen by a free buyer. That's the thing about free market enterprise. The reason why it's superior to any other model, this hybrid Frankenstein crap that we're getting in so many of these areas, it may not be full socialism, but it's certainly not free enterprise, is because, the reason why Google is so good is because Bing is chasing them down. Bing is the number 2 search engine. And if Google screws that up even for a minute, Bing's going to step in. And the beauty is they have to be chosen. So that's free enterprise system. And that free enterprise system, along with the expansion of trade and technology and everything, has led to such a surplus in a couple of ways. First of all, we can easily harness fossil fuels. And inside of a fossil fuel is more BTU and work being done than any other substance anywhere. So we have maximized a BTU, and we can get more work done with small things than what we could have ever imagined. So we get more work done. We have technology that's insane, that does incredible things. And then we have information. And with Moore's law, with the microprocessors continuing to, it's basically that they cut in half the size of the nanometer. The transistors on a microprocessor continue to get shrunk because microprocessors essentially are doing research on microprocessors. So there's this, Byron's like, what are you talking about? My point is we continue to take silicon wafers and make more and more transistors to do more and more math, which allows us to create more higher and higher sophistication within all of our operating systems. So what we're finding now is that we are able to produce so much wealth and so much goodness. And then you add in a global economy. So when we're all interconnected like this, what the global economy and the internet has done, and what Facebook and Google, ultimately, part of why I'm actually okay with them, all my conspiracy theorists are like, no. Part of why I love them is they have taken inefficiencies in productivity out in the service market. So whether you're a writer, a web designer, a video editor, my web designer is in Macedonia, north of Greece, and he's able to earn, like, I can pay him, I don't have to pay him $120 an hour like I would somebody here. I can pay him a great wage. I won't tell you how much it is, but it's good. And he can be sitting in his place and earning. So what it's done is just like peanut butter, where we have the crevasses of our valley. Our entire economy has peaks and valleys through it. Our economy across the world has that. There are places with big valleys where there's not much ability and opportunity. Even if you just go out into a rural America, you were talking about when you went to Wisconsin that there's not a lot of jobs in that rural place. Mm-hmm. You had to come here to be able to do work. Well, just now extrapolate that to like parts of third world countries, developing nations, whatever that is. But what technology has done is peanut buttered, spread across those crevasses and even them out in amazing ways. So here what we have, so to bring this to a head, is that, and I think this illustrates when God said that the Tower of Babel, he confused languages at Babel, because if they could unify together, there's nothing they couldn't accomplish. Mm-hmm. And so it was a humbling that probably happened. But I ultimately think what it is that there's nothing outside of our grasp to an extent. Now, bringing it back, we are so rich. So remember, the illustration we're trying to make here is that the disciples are like, we're rich. How do we get to heaven? Mm-hmm. And Jesus says, on your own, it's impossible, but with God, all things are possible. And that's the principle he's trying to say. And that's that all have fallen and fallen short of the glory of God, and that our best behavior is like filthy rags before a holy God. Mm-hmm. And that ultimately our goodness, our virtue that we think we have is nothing in comparison to him. Now, there's still value to virtue. There's still value to goodness and mercy and love and grace, forgiveness, and rooting up the sins that rot our lives. There's still value to that. It's still something we should pursue. Seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and then all of these things will be added unto you. Seek first the kingdom of heaven, which means to just bring good news, that there's this free gift that you cannot earn, that all it is that we all owe this parking ticket. We all deserve hell because we're separated from this holy God, but that he paid the price. And what's so funny for me, for people, if you're watching this right now and you're wondering, like, what does it mean to actually follow Jesus? It means to just have a relationship with him and to make him and his ways your ways. You're going to fail in that, but you got to pursue that. You seek first that and righteousness. So seek first the kingdom of heaven, which is just come to Jesus. Like, just talk to him. Like, take a shot, make movement. I talk about movement, right? Just maybe there's a Jesus. And if there is a Jesus, maybe if you reached out and tried to talk to him, maybe you asked him, hey, if you're real, help me out. Maybe he'll show himself to you. I don't know. That's the way I've seen it work.
Oh, he will. He will.
And people can say that, oh, it's just a confirmation bias. You're looking for it. You're going to find it. We'll get into a lot of that, but that is not the case. So what I think we have here, what's really interesting when you brought up that we have more wealth. Now let's just talk about that. Why did Jesus emphasize? So he goes on to say that it is going to be very difficult for wealthy people to come to him. And I think it's around this quickening. So here we have in this economic model, which is good. It can be used for good, but it also, there's no quickening. Because we're not scratching out an existence like the curse that was placed upon Adam, because we don't have to do that for the most part right now. It was only 60, 70 years ago that we had a world war. It was before that, World War I, 100 years ago. We had tremendous, awful stuff. And then right out of World War II, we had unfathomable butchery of people by the state, by the commies. The communists butchered people. They butchered them, or they starved them because they were trying to play central planner. Like, you go read 100 million deaths to socialism. That's terrible. Well, it's just not good. I love what Jordan Peter says. When you say that it wasn't true socialism, it means that you believe that you're so much more virtuous that you would have been a better dictator. That's just wrong, man. No, the point is that the state shouldn't have that power. Anyways, I digress. We are in what I believe the part that Jesus was talking about there. That was written for us. Can you fathom what a first century Jew would say if you plopped him in to downtown New York? Mm-hmm. Even to my house here. And he saw what our phone does. Mm-hmm. And he found out that even our poor people are fat. Mm-hmm. And then he found out that you can go to a Walmart. Can you imagine them walking through a Walmart, seeing what's there, and then recognizing, oh, by the way, you don't even have to work to get fed. Mm-hmm. You could literally get fat off of food stamps if you so chose to. I'm not saying that they don't have it hard. I'm not, and that's not me criticizing poor people. But can you imagine a first century Jew thinking that? Mind blown. So this verse, to me, why I think it's so incredible is all of us need to come to this realization that we have scales on our eyes. Mm-hmm. It's very easy. When Jesus said that we need to pray that people have ears to hear and eyes to see, it's because he knew that we were going to come into this era where we're going to have everything. Yeah. We will want nothing. Yep. And how true is that? Like, really think about it, folks. Is there oppression in the black community in America? Yep. And I won't even comment on that. We can say that that's true, but we can also say that it's 10 times better than slavery across the world. At this moment, there are Muslims being killed in China. Mm-hmm. At this moment, there are slaves across the world, child slavery, sex trafficking, sex slaves. There is actual slavery going on. Now, that's not to diminish the terrible things that happen in the African-American community here in America. No, that's not. Mm-hmm. What it's meant to say is that here we are in this position where there's not a quickening. Yeah. And those moments like 9/11 and now COVID, if we're really concerned, we should start thinking about eternity. So I just want to tell a story here. My dad, so he's a baby boomer. I love my boomers. I love my dad. I love my dad too. I love my mom. Are both of your parents alive?
Yeah, my dad lives in Florida. Both my parents are divorced.
Okay.
So I live up here with my mom. Dad lives in, not Florida, excuse me, Atlanta or Georgia.
Okay. In the South.
In the South, yeah.
Far from here.
Hot and muggy.
Yeah, man. I totally kind of forgot where I'm going with this because now my phone just binged. But basically,
your dad.
So my dad, yeah. I love my dad. But what was I talking about with my dad? That he, where was I going to go with that?
I think before that we were talking about great minds think alike.
Yeah. So basically, the bottom line is that I think that in society right now, so Jesus, I think we are living in this moment where it's hard to see. We don't have eyes to see or ears to hear. And I think it's because of the goodness that we have going on right now. Like, that's the bottom line is I think we don't have this quickening. So you look at 9/11, you look at these moments. Oh, so here's a story that I'm going to tell my dad. He's a baby boomer. I love my dad. And he had a friend of ours, and he's my friend too, but I didn't, I kind of knew his kids. We went to church together when we were younger, and his name is Mark. And Mark passed away. And he passed away a year ago. And they're good friends of my parents, and I would call them friends too, and his wife. And what happened is he got esophageal cancer. And over the kind of 2-year span, or what was it? It went fast. It was like they found it, and boom, he had a brain tumor, esophageal tumor, like all just hit him at once, and he moved downward.
How old was he?
He was baby boomer.
Oh,
baby boomer age. That's what I know.
Still
way
young.
Too young.
Yeah.
But it was weird how I remember sitting in the car, and all of a sudden I had this feeling of like dread, really coming to grips that I'm gonna die. And that, when you really think about what is it like when you're walking down the street and all of a sudden the car is genuinely going to hit you and you're going to die. Mm-hmm. Like, Jesus said that we should have an eternal perspective, that we should remember that we're going to die. And here's the hope though, nothing we can do can earn away what we've earned. And so the point of this whole podcast, this little section, was that I think that right now, like, I'm pretty conservative. I'm libertarian leaning. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I believe that people should keep the fruits of their labor. I believe that the state shouldn't be trusted, that we should do government in its what's it called? The minimum amount of government necessary to accomplish the protection of laws. Like, just do natural law. Don't use government because it has unintended consequences. Your well-meaningness creates a monster that a tyrant will take over, or even just well-meaning bureaucrats. And what happens is there's about 70 points of rot that occur when the state has too much power. The church is the hope of the world. And even in that, people don't understand that to be Christian has nothing to do with being a Republican or a Democrat or any of that.
That's right.
And that's something that got lost in this election. I have all these friends that I would make a post about why I believe that liberty-leaning politics is the way it should be. And they jump in. I got this one guy that I went to high school with. You know, he always jumps in and makes this comment and then runs and scatters away. Or he'll never engage, but he goes, "Biggest hypocrite I know. You're such a hypocritical Christian." Why? Because I'm not a decent person. No human decency because I supported Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. How is that the case? No human decency because I ended up choosing the lesser of multiple evils. Basically, I synthesized what I believe would be the best operating system to install in our government. And I believe that liberty, the closest thing to a more liberty-leaning operation, is the best operating system to install on the government. That has no bearance on whether or not I love black people, right, whether I love atheists, lesbians, nothing. But here, a character judgment is placed upon me because I decided to support somebody who is a bunch of, so I think there's the wise, the fool, and the wicked. I think he's got a whole bunch of foolishness in him. There's shades of wickedness in him. But I believe that he would help more than Joe Biden install the most sensible, liberty-leaning version of government, which even his version of conservatism is actually pretty freaking liberal. Like, he's like Bill Clinton of the 90s, man.
Yeah.
And I was against Bill Clinton's policies. Like, I have conservative parents. My dad watched Rush Limbaugh in like 1992. I've been listening to AM radio forever. Like, I knew what the term mainstream media when I was like 11, so I'm totally biased. But you know, the thought that we get to ding people and ascribe that you're a hypocrite, your Christianity is fake, your faith is fake, your God is fake, you've made it up, it's just a candy man in the sky, it's some wizard that you've made up, A, B, you don't really follow your faith. Why? Because you didn't vote for handouts, or you didn't vote for Democrats, or you don't want to, you don't want to have more food stamps, you don't want to have corporate cronyism, you don't want, I don't even understand what the thing is. So what happens is the left right now, and this is Christians, I know a bunch of you, I hope you watch this. I have 3 or 4 Christians that have been posting, I can't believe that you would stand up against, and we're going to go into that too. But I've got Christians posting about how you're not a decent human being if you voted for Trump. No. Most of us have the ability to understand a couple of things. We have the ability to understand that just like business operations, we have government operations. And there are business models and ways to do that. It's like installing an operating system on a computer. You have our land, and I want to install an operating system in it. And the operating system that I follow is where people keep the fruits of their labor. You protect incentives. See, I believe that you destroy incentives when you start tinkering. You don't. And the foundation of that is back to the free enterprise system, where you have a supply and a demand curve. You going around and saying that supply is a human right. You have a right to health care. You running around and being like, I want more people to have college. I want more people to have better jobs. I want more people to have, more people to have, more people to have. And then you make a program to help them. You don't understand that all you've done is given demand more buying power. That's all you did. And what that does is it causes inflation. It did nothing to increase the amount of goods to anybody. You need to understand that. If you like Democrats right now, if you like socialism, or even if you're just a sensible Democrat and you want to help black people right now, you're BLM, you want to help people, let them have more liberty. Let them keep the fruits of their labor. Protect the incentives built into their daily life. Do not destroy incentives like what they've done to the Native American populations around here. You want to see socialism played forward? Look across our country at our Native American populations. Our government owes them something. You know why? Because we've meddled with them and screwed with them and messed with them and destroyed incentives in their communities, and it is terrible. It's why alcoholism is rot. Is it our fault? Yup. Is it because we haven't helped them enough? No. You go watch John Stossel's video about how we've wreaked havoc in the Native American communities across America. It's because we try and help. So if you want to help people, you protect incentives. And you supplying demand with more buying power does nothing. If you want, everybody deserves a popsicle. Here, kids, have some money for popsicles. There's still the same amount of popsicles. Supply stays the same. When you increase the buying power, all that happens, go back to your simple economics. Your teacher taught you about why Karl Marx theories were okay. They taught you why black people are oppressed. And right now we're indoctrinating children to think about how to be an anti-racist. And you're forgetting that the foundations of why housing is expensive in downtown is because we don't increase the supply of housing. All we do is give people more and more money to buy the same amount of houses. And if you don't help developers develop places and increase the sprawl of suburbanness, and if you don't allow for free markets where supply can increase, you're never going to help anybody have more of anything. So back to like where we're at right now is, yeah, we're rich. I love Milton Friedman talks about that our poor people have more luxury goods than ever before. It used to be the only person that could have anything remotely close to an air conditioning, a refrigerator, carpets, a house with like windows, flushing toilets, and then entertainment, luxury food was the rich. Now, our poorest people have smartphones, and that's good. But it didn't come from helping them buy them. It came from corporations competing against each other, trying to get people to choose their solution, trying to outpace each other. In the pursuit of profits, we burn this planet. No. In free enterprise, trying to provide the best product at the best place at the right time with the best propaganda. See, that's the other thing. I had an argument with one of my... So all this, the free enterprise market is better than any other system out there. What thoughts do you have? Dude.
No, I agree with everything you said. No, not much else to say. You hit the nail on every mark. I'm good.
I'm a man of many words.
Yes, you are.
And this is my prime time. What is it? It's like 10:40 in the morning. I've been drinking coffee. The point is, guys, like and subscribe if you like this. We're going to keep sharing this kind of content. And what it's meant to do is just, we're going to talk about the stories of where we are, what's going on. We're going to be putting some stuff together. And I'm telling you, so here's my takeaways. Number one, you can want to install an operating system of government into government and not be an indecent person. And I would say to all of you that are calling Trump supporters indecent, you need to think about that. Because I think that ultimately you're destroying incentives. You're supplying demand with more money and causing things to get more expensive, even though you have good intentions. Even though you think that's not how it works. Okay? You are wrong. Wrong. Okay? I think that doesn't make you bad. I'm not against you. I think you're using Linux. You're using Windows. I want you to use Safari or whatever. Like, you're just using the wrong system. And what it is I think you just know a number of things that aren't true. You trust in a system that controls the narrative and a whole bunch. So that's the government takeaway. For the faith takeaway, man, the bottom line is there are things that are helpful in life and unhelpful. And if you find out what Jesus said, and if you find out what Paul said in the New Testament, so go read what Jesus said. If you just read Mark is a really good overview of what Jesus' ministry was. So remember, you got Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those are 4 testimonies of what happened with Jesus. It'd be like me, Byron, and Heather all wrote a story about my dad, right? And Matthew's really fine detail. It was all From a Jewish perspective, Luke was a doctor. It's very detailed. And Luke and Acts go together. One author written, and it's showing what the church is. Matthew, Mark. John was like afterwards, so he was the one that was closest with Jesus, and his is like, here's the bottom line. That's where you get John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whosoever believeth in him and place their faith and trust in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Those are these bottom line. At the end of John, he says, I wrote this so that people would come to faith in me. So there are things that are helpful in the temporal, in the now. And when you read what Jesus said, go dive into what Paul said. Mm-hmm. Paul's like, get rid of selfishness, greed, envy, hate, like unforgiveness. Like if you just install some of these virtues in your life, even if you didn't believe Jesus, I would say that you'd be running a good test. Mm-hmm. Like you'd be running a sign. Test it out. Go read the Proverbs. And just read it in a New Living Translation, I think, when you're first getting started out, or an NIV, NLT, or NIV. And what that'll do is it'll allow you to start, it's normal language. Remember, vernacular changes. People are like, there's so many versions of the Bible. Which one's true? Well, they're written in two sophisticated languages. Greek is highly precise. They have words that mean very sophisticated things. And then there's context around that. So, when you read what the founders wrote, the American founders, it's hard for us to read that English. If you read how your grandmother wrote letters, you'd probably be a little confused. If you're going to go back 500 years ago, you'd be even more confused. Now we go back 2,000 years ago. It's a different language, a different culture, a different area, different vernacular. And then we have different, like we had all sorts of different. So what it is that the vernacular changes. Even today, our vernacular is different than it was in 1990. Okay, it changes. So what happens is that this can keep the heart and the accuracy, and you can get different. ESV and New King James are highly precise in their own little ways. NLT and NIV are easy to read, but go read it. It's good for now in life. So if you don't believe, that's fine. I would tell you, go read it, see what it says. Now, I dare you to test it. I dare you to test if the reality that you stand in right now, so I believe that if we were to go out onto another planet right now and we found a book and it was Harry Potter, I could infer by seeing that book that there is an author. If I found a painting, I'd know that there was a painter. If there was a building, there would be a builder. This sounds like a stupid argument. You really think this through. This has to do with Genesis. Is there a Genesis to things? We have no scientific method that shows that nothing produces something. And we know that entropy is true and disorder comes from order. Things start out orderly and then they move to disorder. They don't go from disorder to more orderly, which creates problems with the Big Bang. Energy dissipates, entropy dissipates, but across the universe, we have energy pent up. Even in the 0 point energy, like there's just energy, there's heat everywhere. That starts somewhere because it is leaking and dissipating. And there's eventually this 0 point energy thing that happens. So long story short, we would know that here we see creation. We can know that there is a creator. And I think it's most akin to, it's informational. Now we know that physics and DNA is information. There's actually numbers and things behind. Like we know there's a language of DNA. You mess with it a little bit, it doesn't work at all. We get mutations and cancers. You mess with anything. If a mother can't even breastfeed, you get in giant problems. If their uterus is changed a little bit and it's in the wrong shape, you can't reproduce. Like if your potassium levels are off just a little bit, you die. Your sodium level's too high, you die. The universe is fine-tuned. It's an operating system. It's like Microsoft Windows 10, or it's probably more like Mac, right? Let's be clear. But here we have all of physics, all of DNA, everything that we see, all of creation is a finely tuned operating system. We can know that there's a designer and an architect and a mind behind it because the scientific method shows us that sophisticated language like this has never come. We don't have instances of language like this anywhere being done except for from a mind. There's a person behind it. Well, if there is a person, there ought to be a path. A good God who is good enough to build that operating system would allow its sentient being that it supposedly made in its own image, it would allow a path to find them. It would basically drop them a line. It would drop them a rope. I always envision this rope. He would provide a path and a way to come to him. He would also prepare a place that's better because he had to create a place where there's true love and choice rather than a dictatorship, right? So what we have is we have this operating system. We are beings made in his image, and there should be a path, and here we have a path. And throughout antiquity, everything from 2000 BC till 2020 AD, we have a path. We have a message. We have a way. And he says, if you knock, the door will be open. If you ask, you will get the answer. If you seek, you will find. If you just reach out in some way, shape, or form, God will transform your life. He will reach out to you. If you knock on the door, and what that means to me is that you have to test the waters. You got to throw out a prayer. Say to him, God, are you real? Will you just help? Like, if you're out there, help me. But do it before you're staring at the car. Mm-hmm. Do it before, if you knew that you're going to jump out of an airplane, which we do know, you know that you'd want to put on a parachute. Mm-hmm. And here's the parachute. It's not just death. There's a specificity to the way God's love works and what the truth is. The truth is God made perfect beings. He made Adam and Eve perfect, but he allowed choice. He made the fruit. And with that choice meant there could be perfect love, because perfect love casts out fear and perfect love overlooks and forgives. But there has to be a choice there. And man fell and was cursed. And that curse fell upon all of us. And our sin, so the curse is that we sin. And sin breaks our relationship with God, and it breaks our relationship with each other, it breaks our relationship with our kids. When I have a hot temper, it wrecks my relationship with my family. When I'm unforgiving, when I do the things that are sin, and it's kind of interesting. Christians are very hesitant to make out a list of sins, but we're to a point in society where it would probably be helpful to have a list of actual sins. Like, you go to the 10 Commandments, that's a good start. Have no other gods before me is number one. I think I am tempted to have other gods. I really stare at my phone a lot. I worship my own time, my luxury time. Have no other gods before me. Honor your father and your mother. We could just go down the list. Don't lie, don't steal, don't covet. Covetousness. Don't covet your neighbor's wife, car, house. Honor the Sabbath day and keep it holy. You get into these are deep things. And from that, basically, the point is that sin is so pervasive now, it's everywhere, because ultimately it's pride. It's your way above God's way. So all of us have sinned. We've all fall short of the glory of God. The wages of sin is death. And that our best basically, sin makes us impure to a holy God. Like, there's an objective morality and righteousness. Like, there's no scale there. It's either a sin or it's not. Which means if we have even the slightest blemish, we are guilty. So basically what that is, we're going to stand before God, and he's our judge. And he's going to ask, Rob, did you lie? Rob, did you look at a woman and lust for her? Because Jesus said that if you look after a woman in lust, it's the same as having adultery with her in your heart. Yep. Have you ever lied or stolen even in the smallest ways? There's these sins of the heart. So when you read through God's law, have you ever lied? Have you ever told a lie? Have you ever stolen anything? Have you ever lusted after anything? Have you ever cursed and sworn? The point of that isn't it's meant to convict us. The rules in the Old Testament are meant to convict us of our sin and then show us a way out afterwards, because the way out is to place your faith and trust in Jesus. Because God loved us. So he provided ways. For God so loved the world that he gave his son. So basically, all of us deserve death. And because we deserve death, there needs to be an atonement, which means there needs to be a sacrifice. And that's the old way. In fact, Adam and Eve, when they first sinned, he covers them in their nakedness with a skin. And it's because God sacrificed an animal. And what that was meant is every time there's a sin against him, there needs to be an atonement. So basically what it is he pays the fine with a life. So the idea is we stand before the judge. We are guilty. All of us are guilty. But Jesus atoned for us. He was the living sacrifice. He took our payment on it. He paid our parking fee so that we can be free. But he said that we need to come to him and he will give us eternal life. So that's the good news and the faith side, right? So just know, I'm telling you, even if you don't believe it, even if you're cynical of it, I don't know, maybe it's helpful. Like, no matter what, I bet if you start to read the Bible and start saying, read an NLT Bible, read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, read Mark first, maybe go through a little bit of, but when you read Genesis through Exodus, it gets a little dicey in there because it's hard to understand. But, it's good to read a little bit of both. And then I dare you to pray and maybe tell a Christian friend, I'm tinkering with the idea that maybe there's a God. That thing inside of a bunch of you that are like, oh my gosh, talk about cringe. I can't believe you'd do that. Remember how Pharaoh supposedly wouldn't let the Israelites go even when there was crazy plagues? Your heart is hardened. God predicted it. Not only did God predict it, we know it. And the hardness of hearts towards God is the unforgivable sin, because it's ultimately you won't let him in. Let him in. In fact, I pray right now that God would convict some hearts right here and that something cool would happen. So anyways, now you know Byron.
Here I am.
You know me a little bit better. And we're gonna be doing some different recording situations. So God bless, good luck. Like and subscribe. We're gonna do way more of this. So take care, guys.